ICT Functional Skills, Word, writing a letter. Topics you need to know. We look at the file name and adding a version, content and the layout, spell check and grammar, adding a footer, and including symbols. Okay, so we're going to look at writing a letter using Microsoft Word, much like you would for the exam. Now, first thing, like with any documentation, you really need to make sure you save the file and you know where it's saved. So if you go to File, Save As, you can see I've already given a clear name and I can see the location where it's saved. One of the things you may wish to do is give it a version number or name as well. V1 will be sufficient here. Now at this point you can also copy and paste the content and be likely provided to you during the exam, usually from some sort of notepad.txt file. Potentially you would highlight the content in the other file, copy it, and simply come to this file and click paste. There's also paste just up there as well. Make sure your purpose of the letter is clear, and you can do this through spacing out the content, making it easy to view, and changing alignments accordingly. Okay, so we can see that the addresses are spaced out already, but the company and person you're writing from usually goes on the right hand side. So if we highlight it, click the right align, there it is, it's now on the right hand side. And normally the person you're writing to, much like if you received a letter through the post, goes on the left hand side. So if it isn't already, make sure that it's left aligned. Now we're going to space out the rest of the content. So the date of writing, who you're writing to, the main body of the content, yours sincerely, and then would be your name. Now there's various ways you can change the date in which you're writing. You can just type this, or you can go to Insert, Date and Time, and choose an option there. So I'm quite happy where it says 28th February 2019. Now potentially, if you use this in future, every time you open the file, it'll actually change the date due to the method of how we inserted that date and time. The next thing, if you didn't think there's anything else you need to do, would be to make certain aspects bold if necessary in a letter. So maybe the purpose of the letter is to do with some late books, some specific invoice details, something you need to highlight that something's late. You could potentially select that information, whether it says words or sentence, and make it bold. Potentially at this point, you may also want to include your name, and then make that italic. Okay, now some of these are just ideas, but potentially you're demonstrating your knowledge of using Microsoft Word. Next thing, and you may have spotted something highlighted on the page, is to make sure that you review your document with the spelling and grammar. Now, even if you've been provided the content for the exam, it is likely that they've specifically included some errors. The reason for this is making sure that you use the spelling and grammar features. And here you can see it's made a suggestion. It's highlighted the original one, it's got some various suggestions, and I think this is the one I need. So I'm going to select this. It's now saying it can't find any other errors on the page, and am I happy? In this case, I am. And that's just a quick way of doing the spelling and grammar for the exam. You'll normally find there's one or two things you need to spot, and these will be worth about a mark each. The next thing you may want to consider doing, and you may be prompted to do, is to insert a header or footer accordingly. Now sometimes things go out on letter-headed paper, and in this instance, you're going to include just the very basic details of the company here. So it could be company address, email, phone number. And you'll again be provided with those details. Now one of the other things you can do, and you may be prompted to do, is to highlight these details further using symbols. And if you go to the Insert tab, you'll see the symbols drop down here. Now there's various symbols that I've seen come up in the exams. Scissors can be used with some dashes to show that part of the letter needs to be cut off and sent back. You may want to show that some tasks have been done using the tick. You may also find copyright and a few other symbols useful as well. Now if I go to more symbols and specifically choose the font Wingdings, I can see options which may highlight my company details. So the telephone for the telephone number, letter possibly for the address or email, and you can browse accordingly. In this instance, just to demonstrate, we can choose a letter and then insert. Now we can close this, that's all we need to do. And potentially when you'd space out your details, you can see the symbols to make it clear that's what that information is. Okay, we can now close the header and footer. The last thing I just wanted to highlight is if you are doing a letter for the exam, you may just be doing a simple letter like this. We may actually be going on to do a mail merge. So for the mailings tab, you browse the options and more than likely use the start mail merge option and then a wizard. I have a further tutorial which goes into this in more detail. But now, that's the basics you really need to know for writing a letter in Word. Just consider the general formatting, look at the content they've given you, check it, space it out, do a little bit of formatting to make certain points clear, and again just demonstrate your skills without making the letter untidy and over the top. Just show them what you can do and read the question clearly to make sure you do everything that's needed for all the marks. Practice task. Write a letter, coming from the company you're based at, or a made-up company. Address it to a client, customer, or parent accordingly. You don't need to add a lot of content, but keep it professional and use all the features highlighted in this tutorial.